I think Jermaine Johnson is going to become that next level of pass rusher, like where you're talking about 12, 14, 15 sacks. Welcome into the NFL on Fox podcast. I am your host, Dave Helman, and we have got 1 week of preseason in the books. Very surreal moment for me as I spent the better part of 4 days watching preseason football. Saw enough games. I think I saw at least a little bit of all 16 games. Could not tell you the score of a single one. So just a bizarre part of preseason football. The individual performances matter a lot. The actual results, not so much, not for another month or so. Anyway, that's going to be one of the themes for the show. Welcome in. We're going to talk about takeaways from week 1 of the preseason. Also going to get to breakout players for 2024 that we're very excited about. If you're not subscribed to the show, make sure you are. Have content like this all through the month of August leading up to the season. Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you want to do that. Please go follow us on the socials at NFL on Fox Pod. You know the drill. That's the housekeeping. I did say we, because I've got a little bit of help to go through this, the first week of preseason and breakout players. That would be none other than our friend, Fox Sports reporter Carmen Vitali. Carm, welcome back to the show. So we got through the beginning of it. Week 1 of the preseason. And I mean, it's always an exciting time of year. The actual quality of the play on the field, a little bit lesser than what we'll see. We know how this goes, right? It's a lot of excitement, and then in the third quarter of a lot of these games, you're like, oh yeah, this isn't the real deal.
I mean, there's so much like overreaction that happens for this kind of stuff, and I feel like it goes up a level every single year too. Like we know better than to overreact to certain things in preseason, and yet it happens every year.
Okay. But if I may, and you're right, and like the more ubiquitous things are online, the more clips you see on social media, the worse it gets. But I'm just gonna lean into it. Like rather than be the jaded reporter who refuses to be impressed by anything,
fair.
We gotta wait 9 damn months for this stuff to start, and you only get 20-something weeks of football a year. I'm going to celebrate every single bit of it, even if I know better.
Okay.
Because
all right, I'll go with you.
Bad football on my TV still
is better than no football.
Than no football at all.
Sure.
But okay, even knowing that some of this stuff isn't ultimately going to matter, or maybe we're hyping it up too much, what I wanted to do with you, we're not going to break down everything from every preseason game, goodness gracious. But there are at least a few very meaningful things that happened over the weekend that I want to get into with you. We'll call it the big takeaways from week 1. Started out in a very obvious place. For starters, of course, all 6 of the first round draft pick quarterbacks, the rookie quarterbacks, all 6 of them got into the action. And honestly, all 6 of them looked pretty damn good. Like J.J. McCarthy turning some heads after a shaky start with an interception. Bo Nix, I think a lot of people in Denver are excited about what he showed in his first outing against Indianapolis.
They need hope.
They need hope.
They need hope.
We got 2 more weeks to see how it all ages. But even in a draft class with an unprecedented 6, obviously one guy was going to take center stage. Of course, it's going to be Caleb Williams. And I'm not going to, I mean, this is your guy. You're the Chicago, and I'm not going to take your shine, but really felt like even if we don't want to overreact, he really delivered on a lot of the hype in his first performance.
No, he did. He did everything you wanted. Caleb Williams did everything you wanted him to do in a preseason game, in his preseason debut. He only played 2 series, but that did end up being 20 snaps. Matt Eberflus had said prior to the preseason game starting, this is prior to the Hall of Fame game even, that he wanted Caleb Williams to get 45 to 55 total snaps within this preseason before he's expected to go out there and be the week 1 starter. I thought there was some really good stuff from Caleb Williams, and not all of it was like, there was the 26-yard pass to Cole Kmet that everybody lost their minds over because he's on the run, he's off platform, he's going against his momentum, he squares his shoulders, fires to Cole. It's completely accurate. It was wonderful play. And it's exactly what you come to expect from Caleb Williams if you watched him at USC. And it's why he's touted as such a special player. But can I tell you, the most impressive thing to me was actually not that play.
Fundamentals, just like the basics.
I'm about to get real nerdy, real gritty, real grimy here.
That's what we're here for.
It was the second play of the game. And it actually ended up not even counting because Buffalo committed a holding penalty on it. But what happened was Caleb Williams gets flushed out of the pocket in the second play of the game. There's pressure. He sees it. He's scrambling around in the backfield. But while he's scrambling, he's still keeping his eyes up, looking for additional throwing lanes, trying to extend the play, not only with his legs, but also with his arm. He doesn't see anything after he's up against the sideline and he throws the ball away. That entire series of decisions that Caleb Williams made in that one play that didn't even count told me more than I think the rest of the time he played for the Bears against the Bills. It was because he made the decisions that needed to be made. He did not look like he was flustered. He kept his poise and he avoided something catastrophic like a sack or, God forbid, a fumble or a turnover or an interception. He didn't try to force anything. Those are the kinds of decisions that veterans make. And for Caleb Williams to have the wherewithal to do that in his preseason debut on his second snap as a professional football player, I just thought was really encouraging.
Another thing I love, look, he goes 4 of 7 on 2 possessions, guides the Bears to 2 field goals before he gets out of the game, 95 passing yards. And you look at it and you say, well, 42 of that came from what was barely a pass to Khalil Herbert. But right. So much more impressive than your average dump-off pass, because if you haven't seen it, please go look it up. He's
more of a hook shot than
he's
it was
in
a
the
pass.
grasp of a defender. He's getting away from pressure, and he kind of does a little hook shot shovel pass over to Khalil Herbert
over top of his offensive line.
Even if it was only a 2-yard little rinky-dink pass, it's that sort of improvisational ability, that sort of thinking on your feet. The willingness and the ability to do some audacious things. Yeah. I mean, in addition to the arm strength and the athletic ability, that's part of what made him such an enticing package. So to see him make some smart plays, he had was it the first or second play? Like he just throws the ball away, and that's just a heady place for him to be. Yeah, right. Like in his first game, trying to live up to the expectations, to just make smart plays in addition to some of the wow moments. And don't think it could have gone any better.
Like I said, the most encouraging thing, and something I've been saying about Caleb Williams throughout the offseason after he was drafted by the Bears, is why I was so encouraged with him as a prospect, is because of the way that he scrambles. You saw it at USC too, where again, he keeps his eyes up. He is still looking to make a play with his arm. He is not just putting his head down or having tunnel vision and tucking the ball and running it himself, though he can do that. He did have a 13-yard rush in this preseason game as well, but it was because there were legitimately no other options for him and he was trying to evade pressure. So that is what gives me optimism when it comes to a guy like Caleb Williams translating his skill set to the NFL, because there's so many guys in college that are just flat out more talented than the competition they're going against. And that's been the case of Caleb Williams for a lot of his career. Now you get to the NFL, everybody's talented. Defenses are super sophisticated. They're going to show you one look. They're going to do something else. You need to be able to make decisions on the fly and play the game with, the mental side of things. And that's what's going to set you apart. And that's what's going to make you great in the league. And I've seen Caleb Williams be capable of reading defenses, making those decisions, and it's only been in preseason. So obviously you still need to see that in the regular season, but it was encouraging. I'm not saying he's offensive player of the year yet, but
no, and there will be a step up, right? Because defensive coordinators are not game planning for a quarterback's specific abilities in the preseason.
Oh, I will say Sean McDermott was throwing some more stuff out there than I was kind of expecting him to.
He's like, I'll show this rookie.
I mean, I don't know if that was necessarily it, but I was like, this is not just like a standard cover 2 shell here that he's facing. Like I don't know, he's doing some fun things.
Regardless, for the talent level will go up, the level of game planning will go up. It's going to get more difficult for Caleb Williams, but I just wanted him to look confident, comfortable, and demonstrate some of that playmaking ability. And it was just like box checked, box checked.
That's a great way to put it.
We move on to the next one. We'll see how it goes. But man, what an encouraging start. Can I tell you?
Yeah.
As far as thank you, Captain Obvious goes, I'll keep it real obvious for my biggest takeaway from week 1 of the preseason, and that is Joe Burrow. He's back, and I don't need to see him again until August 8th.
That's true.
Or September 8th, excuse me.
That's true.
The Cincinnati Bengals open the season on September 8th against the New England Patriots. I don't know if Zach Taylor's going to play it this way, the head coach in Cincinnati, but if I were him, I don't need to see another live rep from Joe Burrow.
No.
He gets onto the field in Cincinnati against Tampa Bay in his preseason opener, and I really don't think he could have looked better. 1 series, 12 plays, 73 yards for an opening touchdown. He even gets it to T. Higgins, by the way.
Right.
So he's finding his playmakers. Jamar Chase didn't play in this game, but he finds T. Higgins. And honestly, the stuff that doesn't show up on the stat sheet is what made me even more encouraged. Joe threw 2 incompletions on the day, one of which he just dirted a play action ball because he had a nickel back in his face right when he came out of his break. No problem there. The other one, he looks for T. Higgins on a deep post and places a beautiful throw 35 yards downfield between 2 fenders, hit T in his hands, broken up at the last minute by a DB, but like it was there. It was the exact pinpoint accuracy that you've come to expect from Joe Burrow. I'm just not sure what else he needs to show. And especially as long as Jamar Chase is sitting out, why are we subjecting this guy to more risk? Wrap this man in bubble wrap until we get to the regular season, because he looks ready to go.
Yeah, all you need to know about Joe Burrow is that he's healthy. He knows his receivers, he knows his weapons, and you've fortified this offensive line, hopefully. But like, we know what Joe Burrow is capable of. We've seen it. So as long as he's still he's still able to do the things that he was able to do prior to his injury, you're right. I'm like, just wrap him up, just save him for later, and let him be shot out of a cannon week 1.
It's just so much fun when things go according to plan like that. Because obviously, especially in the preseason, you're like, oh, this guy missed a protection, so I had to throw this away. The timing wasn't just quite there. But literally, the Bengals looked like a well-oiled machine. Like I said,
and they should be.
Straight down the field. Did not look like it was their first meaningful action of the preseason. Hopefully, it is their last. Zach Taylor, I understand the urge to get work, but you need number 9 ready for the regular season, and I'm telling you, he's ready to go. So, in summation, Joe Burrow, good to go. Rookies, we'll keep an eye on you here over the next couple weeks. I would imagine we're going to see plenty more of Caleb, not to mention all the other rookies, at least in this next preseason game. We'll see about week 3. Plenty more to keep our eye on as we get into the next batch of preseason games next weekend. Until then, Carmen and I are going to take a look at our most intriguing breakout candidates for 2024. Guys that maybe aren't on the national radar, but will be very soon. That's up next. All right, Carm, we're calling this breakout players for 2024. Basically, I just wanted an excuse to gush about players that I'm really excited about heading into this season. So simple enough. I'm going to give you my 3 guys that I'm really excited to see where they go this year. Okay. You've got 3 of your own that you're really excited about.
I came prepared. You guys gave me homework. I came prepared. So
we'll have our own lists. We'll critique each other's lists. You know, if you're listening, watching, sound off in the comments and tell us what you think. Preferably agree with us.
Only if it's nice.
Yeah, only if it's nice.
Don't be mean.
All right, which there's no chance you will be, because these lists are going to be
this
amazing.
is just about getting, like, I'm not saying these are the only 3 guys you should talk about. Just saying that these are 3 guys that are fun.
I don't really know how it happened, but I feel myself becoming an ambassador for the Buffalo Bills this year.
I've noticed that from you, from just like appearances we've done together.
I feel like the narrative has gotten out of control in regard to the Bills being an afterthought. Mm-hmm. Like, and that's, and you're starting to see some pushback as we get closer to the season, but I just need to let people know that they're writing off the Buffalo Bills too soon. And some of that is, well, obviously Josh Allen is the biggest part, but they have some really exciting young talent. And that's my number 3 guy. We'll start at 3 and count down to 1. I'm so excited about what this season has in store for Dalton Kincaid, the second-year tight end.
Yes, I'm so with you. And actually,
Buffalo.
He was going to be on my list, and then I think we discussed this. But go ahead. I'm sorry.
Maybe it feels like I'm cheating. Yeah, like diehard NFL fans are going to be like, Dave, everybody knows who Dalton Kincaid is. He was a first-round pick. He caught 73 passes last year. But what I'm trying to tell you, I'm staking my claim that Dalton Kincaid will be on that short list of star tight ends by the end of this season. Because I
agree.
think he's going to be the focal point of what the Bills do this year. Like, you lose Stephon Diggs, you need to replace that production. You also, quietly, nobody mentions they also lost Gabe Davis. Like, there's so much attention on losing Diggs, you forget that Gabe Davis.
Josh Allen lost 40% of his offensive
his targets.
Yeah,
42 to be specific. 42% of his targets play for other teams. And who better to replace those targets than a 6'4", 240-pound matchup problem?
Who also had 91 targets himself last year. Like, he had 73 catches on 91 targets. Like, Josh Allen, of all people, is very familiar with this guy already.
Which, and I think that's, if you're critiquing my list, maybe you're saying, oh, he already broke out. No, I think we're going into a different category this year. Because again, without Stephon Diggs, without Gabe Davis, I think you've, and really a rotating cast of decent options at receiver. Dalton Kincaid feels like the fixture. And we've also seen, not to put too much emphasis on the Kansas City Chiefs, but look what they've done with Travis Kelce and even Rashee Rice.
Right.
It's so nice to have that fallback option in the middle of the field in the slot that can just be your go-to easy button, your go-to target. I think Dalton Kincaid, forget 91 targets. I think he's going to flirt with 100 catches. I'm expecting Dalton Kincaid to get targeted 120, 130, 140 times this season. I don't think that's out of the realm of possibility. And if he's your 1,100-yard receiver, everybody else can just kind of fill in the gaps. And I think that's going to be the plan in Buffalo. I've got big expectations for him.
Especially because you look at their receiver core and you have Keon Coleman now, who you hope can be your wide receiver one. But while a rookie is getting his sea legs, you have a bunch of kind of like number two guys, like a bunch of guys that are like 400 to 600 yard a year receivers. I think also, in addition to Dalton Kincaid, this offense is going to be built around James Cook too. And I almost put him, I put another running back on my list, but I almost put James Cook for this exact reason that you're talking about Dalton Kincaid. Because if you look at James Cook last year, he had over 1,100 yards rushing. Well, he also added 40 catches for 445 yards through the air, and he had more receiving touchdowns than he did rushing touchdowns. So I have to think that between James Cook and Dalton Kincaid, there is going to be this pretty versatile offense that Josh Allen now, who's a vested veteran, one of the best quarterbacks in the league, is going to figure out how to exploit when you're talking about going against defenses while having the receivers be kind of the cleanup guys.
Yeah, my vision is exact. And I'm with you on James Cook as well. Like if Dalton Cook is a lock for 6+ catches and 60+ yards a week, right, and then James Cook does his thing, then the rest of it is just about, okay, who's this week's guy? Is this a Curtis Samuel week?
Right.
Is this the week that Khalil Shakir has a favorable matchup, et cetera?
Who I do think is going to get a bigger target share this year too. Khalil Shakir quietly did some very good things for the Buffalo Bills last year.
So you're saying neither one of us is sleeping on the Buffalo Bills?
I don't think either one of us, but I think to your point of what this list is who are guys that could become household names by the end of this season, where like there is no doubt in anybody's mind you've heard of Dalton Kincaid, James Cook. I think NFL fans at large know who these guys are. But I mean, especially if you want to kind of put another twist on this, if you want to put like some fantasy implications on any of this, I think Dalton Kincaid is one of the best tight ends that you could possibly get. And I don't know if he's going to be the one that goes first in a lot of these drafts, because you do have obviously some stiff competition there between Travis Kelce, George Kittle, Mark Andrews, all those guys. But I think James Cook and Dalton Kincaid could be some maybe fantasy sleepers as of right now.
After the duo of Travis Kelce and George Kittle, there's no tight end that I definitively feel better about than Dalton. Mark Andrews is a great player, but I'm just saying, like, I think that highly of what Dalton Kincaid will do in this offense. Mark Andrews might be the better overall player. This isn't a ranking of tight ends.
Yeah. Fair.
But I just think Dalton Kincaid is going to have that kind of season.
Did do an article, this reminds me, for FoxSports.com about the Gen Z tight ends that are poised to take over the league now. So as a shameless plug, Dalton Kincaid's on it. Just so you're aware.
Feels like a safe bet. I didn't realize I was doing this, but as we move through my list, my number 2 player, it's an AFC East heavy list, I guess. And I promise you, this was my guy before Monday's news.
Oh.
Hassan Reddick has requested a trade from the New York Jets. We'll see how that plays out. Very bizarre situation brewing in New York. Supposedly, the Jets offered Hassan a contract extension before they traded for him.
Which would have been the smart thing to agree on prior to trading
Hassan,
for him.
According to our buddy Jordan Schultz, Hassan said, no, I'm not into that. And the Jets were like, well, we're going to trade for you anyway.
Yeah.
And now we'll see where that plays out. But it works perfectly for me.
Okay.
Because I'm already sky high.
Oh, I know where you're going with this.
On the next guy in the Jets pipeline. That would be Jermaine Johnson.
Yeah. That's a good one. I like that a lot.
I think he's already primed to become that next level of pass rusher, which, again, this is a guy, I think if you're a football sicko, you're telling me he's not a breakout candidate. He did have 7.5 sacks last year. He wound up being named to the Pro Bowl. But I do think like this is a different level for me. Yeah. Like when you look at that, those are great numbers for a second-year player.
Right.
You're still right on the fringe of the top 50 in terms of sack production. I think Jermaine Johnson is going to become that next level of pass rusher, like where you're talking about 12, 14, 15 sacks in a season. And it just seems like it follows his progression. You know, handful of sacks as a rookie, turns into a wonderful role player last year. You know, the Jets had Bryce Huff last year.
Mm-hmm.
Turns in 7.5 sacks. But even more so now, the Jets need Jermaine Johnson to be the guy, especially, I mean, heaven help them if they can't find a way to get Hassan Reddick to report to camp, because I do think they need that extra guy. And I think Jermaine Johnson would be an even bigger breakout candidate if Hassan Reddick is there demanding attention on the other side of the line. I was just going to say,
that was my thought process, I was like, well, don't you kind of want Hassan Reddick there? Because then defenses have to account for him, and that should hopefully leave Jermaine Johnson with some one-on-ones on the other side. I don't know. Does that happen if Jermaine Johnson is the only one you have to key in on?
It needs to.
Well, yes, the Jets are going to hope so, but I think that, but in tandem and in theory, with the way the Jets are currently constructed with Hassan Reddick, I love this pick.
I think he's a fun player. You know, first round pick a couple years ago. 6'5", 260, like a big
prototypical
dude, but also like the athleticism you would expect of a guy that's drafted that early as well.
Right.
And I think by and large, obviously we haven't seen Hassan Reddick in a Jets uniform. The Jets got, you know, people, if you're critiquing Bryce Huff, people will say he gets most of his sacks with effort and less so with like dominating athleticism. I think Jermaine Johnson can do a little bit of both. I think he's going to break out regardless of whether Hassan Reddick is there.
Well,
but I do think it goes to another level
fair
if he can take advantage of that attention on the other side.
I do also want to point out too, though, that the interior of the Jets defensive line with Quinnen Williams and you have Devon Kinlaw in there, that should be enough to command some attention that gets Jermaine Johnson those favorable matchups on the outside. So either way, I agree with you where I think that.
And on top of that, we can criticize a lot of things about Robert Saleh as an NFL head coach.
He knows D-line.
He knows how to generate pressure. He knows how to get good looks for his guys. Like I said, if Hassan Reddick is there, then this becomes one of the more exciting units in the NFL, in my opinion.
Yeah, for sure.
Even without Hassan Reddick. Very, very excited about what Jermaine Johnson can be. All right, I'll wrap up my list. Guy that I've really been touting. This will be my third year. The third time's the charm, because honestly, I was feeling iffy about this until we got to training camp this summer. Because going all the way back to the 2022 draft, I've been such a fan of Jameson Williams.
Oh,
and this is the year.
J-Mo.
One pride, Detroit Lions. This is the year that Jameson Williams pays it back. I thought he was the best receiver in that draft class, and that take.
He was such a draft darling in that class.
That take stinks right now when you consider what we've seen from Garrett Wilson, when we've seen what Chris Olave can do. But I'm not jumping off of the bandwagon now. Not now when we've been through everything. Because remember, Jameson Williams was coming off the ACL injury as a rookie. So that is naturally going to limit your progress when you get hurt at the end of your final college season. just as he's rounding into form after that, he gets the gambling suspension.
Yeah.
He didn't even know. Okay. We're not holding that against him. And he comes back.
Well, to be fair,
year.
it did get reduced too, because the NFL reviewed that rule and we're like, all right, yeah, okay. And they're like, our bad.
You probably do realize this, Carmen. So I'm going to address this to the viewers and the listeners. Do you realize at home, by the end of last season, Jameson Williams was averaging 67% of the Lions snaps, like in the playoffs?
Yeah.
That's what he was doing. And he responded to that playing time. In the 3 playoff games that Detroit played, he put up 121 yards, which would be a quarter of his production on the season. 25% of the yardage he put up last year came in the 3 playoff games. Obviously, the highlight of that was the NFC title game, 67 yards and 2 touchdowns on 3 touches.
Yeah.
Which that's why he went 12 overall, by the way.
Yeah.
Because he has that type of game-breaking speed.
Clearly took the San Francisco 49ers defense a little bit by surprise
that
game.
And now we get to training camp, and everything I'm hearing coming out of Detroit is that he's a camp standout.
Yeah, okay. I think you're right with this, but like this has also happened every year that he's been with Detroit.
But it makes sense now.
It does make sense. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying
there's no
caution.
Injury, there's no suspension to worry about.
You're right.
And on top of that, I just want to throw this out there. I don't think there's pressure on him to perform the way he was drafted, but there's not pressure on Jameson Williams to be the guy.
No, not at all.
Detroit has 2 fantastic volume players like Amon-Ra and Sam Laporta, and I'll even throw in Jahmyr Gibbs.
I was going to say,
That's 3 guys that can do the bulk of your get the bulk of your targets.
Yeah.
If Jameson Williams is the 4th guy on your list of receivers, if he catches 45 balls this year with his speed, he's going to have really, really impressive numbers. And I think because of that, he will be a star with the amount of house calls he has the potential to make.
That's the thing is all you need from Jameson Williams is to be that burner guy, because you have guys that can do all the wonderful things underneath. You've got Jahmyr Gibbs, who's one of the most versatile running backs in the league now. You have Sam Laporta, who is capable of producing volume catches. And then you have Amon-Ra St. Brown, who literally does everything out of every alignment all across the field. He can do it all. But if you have a guy that can stretch the field in Jameson Williams and make the defense account for him down the field, or God forbid, forget about him, Jared Goff sits behind one of the best offensive lines in football, if not the best offensive line in football. He is going to have time to throw that ball more often than not. He is going to have time to let those plays develop. Now you just got to capitalize on it. And yeah, I mean, JMO, everybody within the Lions organization talks so much about how fast he is. Like, he is speedy. So he can get down the sideline pretty darn quickly. He can burn corners. That's what he was brought to Detroit, I should say, to do. If this could, like, this is just like that piece de resistance of Ben Johnson's system.
I'm going to say Ben Johnson is still there.
Is still the offensive coordinator and knows what to do to exploit all of these different pieces and make them all work in a lot of different combinations, so that, I mean, good luck defending them if you're going up against them as a defense.
When you talk about this as much as we do, you do a lot of bet hedging. You know, like, you don't want to jump too definitively onto something lest you be wrong.
Right.
And it'll blow up in your face from time to time. In this case, I'm staying right here on the Jameson Williams side of the fence, and he's either going to vindicate me or I'm going to go down with the ship. But I'm not afraid, because I believe that much in the type of talent that this guy has. This is the year for JMO. I can't wait. All right, that's my list. Okay. I actually, I don't know who you're throwing at me here, which I can't wait. I'm going to blind react to this.
Okay.
See what you got for me.
Okay.
Who are your 3 breakout players for 2024?
I guess technically defense heavy, and actually secondary, which is kind of unlike me. I'm an offensive line, defensive line person, but I wanted to focus on some guys that the spotlight's going to be on them given the position they play. Maybe, just bringing them to the national audience. My first one is a team I know very well, team I grew up watching. And it's Tyrique Stevenson, who is now going to play opposite of Jalen Johnson. Not now. He did that last year too. Jalen Johnson did not get balls thrown his way because he is one of the best corners in the league and he was paid like it. Jalen Johnson had the ball thrown his way 57 times last year. Do you want to know how many times then, as a result, Tyrique Stevenson had the ball thrown at him?
I do want to know that.
105 targets. It was tied for the second most of any corner in the league.
Tracks.
So in his first year, his rookie year, Tyrique Stevenson.
He was a rookie.
I know. I actually had to like second guess myself.
For some reason, like I thought this was year 3 for Tyrique Stevenson. He did that in year 1.
I know. I literally like before I even said it, I was like, he's a rookie, right? He's a rookie. Like, because it doesn't seem like he is, but he is. Because he did get Rookie of the Year by the Bears organization. After this season, the Bears organization does their own little awards, and Tyrique Stevenson got Rookie of the Year. So they clearly believe in him. And I mean, he got thrown into the fire because of who he plays opposite from. But then going into this year's camp, it was interesting to see there was no cornerback competition for the guy that was going to start opposite of Jalen. It was always just assumed it was Tyrique Stevenson. And it's because if you watch last season, and if you pay attention to PFF grades or anything like that, I think Tyrique's 4 best graded games came after week 11. So yeah, you threw him into the fire early. He got a lot of targets. He got burned multiple times. His 61% completion rate that he finished with leaves some room to improve. But his best games came in the back half of the season where, if you recall, the Chicago Bears, just their secondary in particular, just went insane. They had like 18 interceptions in the last, 8 to 10 games. Tyrique himself was responsible for 4 interceptions.
4 picks, 16
13.
pass breakups.
Yes. Oh, I had 13, so.
16 credited by Pro Football Reference on the year.
All right. 13 was
in a
credited by
season
PFF.
where he was being intentionally targeted because he played across from an All-Pro.
Exactly. So if you look at even in the advanced metrics, wow, my Midwest just came out there, advanced metrics, you can see like his receiving yards over expectation that he allowed was like at a flat 0. So he was doing everything that you kind of expected him to do as a rookie. He also forced the most tight window throws of anybody on the Bears, including Jalen Johnson last year. So 26% of the throws that were thrown at him were thrown into tight windows, meaning his coverage was very good.
Are we talking enough about the Bears secondary?
No.
Given what you're telling me?
I actually don't think so. And part of it might be justified given that I don't really trust the depth in Chicago secondary. But if you're looking at the starters, I mean, you have Kevin Byard now that's there to be that veteran presence as a safety. You have Jaquan Brisker, who, I think everybody knows who he is at this point because he talks a lot. You have Kyler Gordon, who's your nickel. And now you have Jalen Johnson, one of the highest paid corners in the league. And you have Tyrique Stevenson rounding this whole group out. It's a really good secondary. Again, the depth worries me a tiny bit, but that's if you're nitpicking. I would put those guys up against pretty much anyone. And we know that Matt Eberflus does really, really good things for DBs and figures out how to take the ball away using these guys as just absolute ball hawks, which he did at the tail end of last year. So
I think the cliche, the thing that we've said 10 million times since February is they were a top 10 defense after the Montez Sweat trade. And that's true, but it puts so much focus on Montez Sweat.
Right.
He is a great player, but that is quite a collection of exciting young talent. And I love it, man. Like I said, I think highly enough of Tyrique Stevenson. In my brain, I thought he was a year 3 pro.
I literally just looked it up
knowing
to triple check because it's one of those things where, he seems like he's been playing at a veteran level for a while now.
I'm not going to be surprised at all if he, as well as Brisker and Gordon, some of those other young guys, if they're all not much bigger names this season. So a lot of attention on Caleb, rightfully so, but that's going to be an exciting defense to watch. Who else you got?
All right. My second one is I'm going to the other side of the ball, and I'm going across the country, cross conferences, all that other stuff. I have Chargers running back J.K. Dobbins.
Oh.
You want to talk about how you're trying to make JMO happen?
This feels like JMO all over again.
I am trying to make
say.
J.K. Dobbins happen.
One of these years, it's going to happen.
It's going to happen. Honestly, though, where else? If it doesn't happen in LA, if it doesn't happen with Jim Harbaugh as his head coach, it's not going to happen. So I think that maybe it will. I don't know. Here's the thing. I don't think it's pretty self-explanatory. Jim Harbaugh runs the damn ball. That is what he does. He beefs up both sides of the trenches and on the offensive side because he wants to run the ball. And I think that especially when you look at what the Chargers lost at receiver, the focal point of this offense is going to change. And yes, you have Justin Herbert, who is so, he's the prototypical quarterback. He can make every throw you need him to. He's so talented, yada, yada, yada. But I think that this offense is going to go through the ground, at least to start out with. And yeah, you have Gus Edwards too, but I also think that J.K. Dobbins is going to be part of this because I foresee a lot more pro sets, multiple running backs on the field, those 21 personnel looks. I foresee that happening a lot for the Chargers. And especially when you consider the investments they made along the offensive line, which obviously is for pass protection, but it's also to make sure that you can pound the rock. And you have Joe Alt now at right tackle, opposite Rashawn Slater, my guy from Northwestern, at left side.
You don't get to say that very often.
I don't.
My guy from Northwestern,
Rashawn Slater, love him. You do have maybe a little bit of a question mark at center with Bradley Bozeman, but this is a really good unit.
It's better than it was.
It's
clearly
much better than it was. So when you have a really solid offensive line, you've got a good kind of running back, and it might be by committee. I think that J.K. Dobbins has the potential to really shine in this offense that is going to be very run heavy under Jim Harbaugh if his track record is to be believed, which, do you want to know, just as like a fun fact?
Of course.
Do you want to know how many throws J.J. McCarthy made last season?
It probably wasn't very many. I watched Michigan football.
He attempted 332 passes all year.
Yeah.
All year.
That tracks.
So
we're gonna ground and pound out here.
Yes,
in Los
out
Angeles.
in LA of all places. It's just
Hopefully
hard-nosed football.
Hopefully for Justin Herbert's sake, that's not completely true. But
I know you do have that.
I mean, you talk about like unmet potential and unmet excitement. Like J.K. Dobbins is JMO-esque.
Yes.
I remember he was drafted 55th overall by Baltimore.
Yes.
And with Lamar there, I was like, this kid's gonna run the league.
Yes.
You realize, and this is unfortunate. I'm not criticizing it. It's mainly been injuries, unfortunately, but 24 NFL appearances.
I know.
Out of a possible 67 games.
I know. So I think that the upside is tremendous here. Like, why wouldn't the Chargers have gotten J.K. Dobbins? Because it's kind of a can't lose scenario. And I do think that, hey, Jim Harbaugh's going to run the ball a lot. So
he has every bit of the talent necessary to be a feature back, a star attraction type of player. I hope you're right, just because
I know I'm
ready to see it. It's been a long way. Like I said, most of that is not his fault. Just such terrible luck with the injuries. I hope 2024 is the year that J.K. Dobbins breaks out. All right.
Maybe I'm willing it into existence, Like,
you know what? Yeah. That's kind of what this is, is we're manifesting big seasons for our guys. Who's your last one?
Wow, you really are LA. My last one, I'm going back to the cornerback room because I fell in love with this guy when he was in college, coming out in the draft. I just think that we're not done seeing his ceiling, and that's Devon Witherspoon in Seattle, cornerback out of Illinois. He was drafted to a Pete Carroll-led Seahawks team, defense, the Legion of Boom, all like just the tradition of DBs in Seattle is rich. And I see Mike Macdonald continuing that. I cannot wait to see Devon Witherspoon in a Mike Macdonald defense. And I just think that there is so much that we haven't seen from Devon Witherspoon yet, just given how versatile he was in college. And again, the pieces that are around him in Seattle, I cannot wait to see what this defense looks like with their new head coach. and he brought some guys over with him, both on the coaching staff and player wise. It's going to be such a cohesive unit, I think. And especially in the secondary, if anybody can remake the Legion of Boom or call it, Legion of Zoom, I don't know, something along those lines.
The Gen Z
version of the Legion of Boom. Yeah. Gen Z's on my brain. I think that it's McDonald in Seattle, and I think that is led by Devon Witherspoon. I think he becomes the next household name as far as DBs go coming out of Seattle.
I vividly remember when Mike McDonald got hired by the Seahawks right after the Ravens left the playoffs. They asked him about Devon Witherspoon at one. It was if it wasn't his introductory press conference, it was shortly thereafter, and you just saw the look.
Got giddy.
You saw the look in his eyes. Yeah.
Yes.
He was like, oh yeah, and I mean it's an easy parallel to draw, right? Like he turned Kyle Hamilton into a star. Very different.
Different player, but also
different player. But I think
Kyle
it's
Hamilton.
It's the same general idea in terms of a Swiss Army knife that helps you in any matchup. Like he can do stuff inside, he can do stuff back at safety, he can do stuff outside. He can go wherever Mike McDonald wants him to. And like I said, of course, it's not a 1-for-1 in terms of the way that they play the game, but it's so obvious that his defense operates at a higher level with these type of players that can handle damn near any role on the back end of the defense. And it makes
in some cases,
sense.
The front end too, because Witherspoon talks about how physical he is and how much he loves to hit people. He did have 3 sacks last year. So I foresee that going up. He only had 1 interception too. I feel like the way that Mike McDonald can move him around in the secondary and then also bring him down for some of these corner blitzes that we love to see. I cannot wait.
Just go ahead and
so much fun.
Go ahead and chalk it up. Like the simulated pressures you hear so much about. Go ahead and assume Devon Witherspoon is going to go on some blitzes and have a linebacker or a lineman drop into the hole in the zone that he was supposed to fill.
8 tackles for loss last year.
He is a heat-seeking missile. Yes. And I mean, a big-time draft pick, obviously, but when we talk about breaking out, there is so much room to grow. I mean, we've seen in that very city just how big good DBs can be, whether it's Richard Sherman, Jamal Adams. Jamal Adams, Earl Thomas, the list goes on and on and on. I'm going to go ahead and say I expect Devon Witherspoon to be the next one on that. So yeah, I think that's a really good name to keep in mind.
Yeah. Did you again, got to put on for the Illini, the Illinois guys.
Big Ten backer over there.
I'm a big Ten backer over here. I would have been a Big Ten backer too if I'd played football.
All right, and just like that, easy little list, easy little show. Carm, thanks for we'll call it walking through some of our guys.
Yeah,
I appreciate the assist.
Yeah, no, anytime, literally. And again, don't get mad at us. We're just talking about some guys. We're sitting around talking about some dudes. That's all we're doing.
Love nothing more than sitting around talking about some guys. That's what we did. Carm, I know you'll be back to help us preview the 2024 season as we continue to get closer. Stay tuned for our next episode later this week. We've got none other than Yahoo's Nate Tice. Really excited to continue looking at this 2024 season with him. Make sure you see that in your feed. Go subscribe on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts, wherever you get your NFL news. You can find us on social at NFL on Fox Pod. So much more content coming your way as the 2024 regular season creeps closer. Thanks again to Carmen Vitali. I'll talk to y'all real soon. I appreciate it.